Hello students, today we are going to study psychology and the topic for today is personality. So let's start. What is personality? You have heard the word personality often, but what does it mean in the context of psychology? Personality means the way a person behaves. Personality contains the word person, which comes from the Greek word persona. So personality is, if to understand personality you need to first understand yourself. So you have a concept called self. This is you. Like, if I give you a statement, how do you describe yourself? You would say, if I am your name, then you will say I am maybe your caste or religious identity or your national identity. Like, I am Priya and I am an Indian. Then again you can say I am what kind of person. You may say some quality about yourself, like I am an honest person. So who is this I? So this is self. So the characteristics of self is personality, and it is not just any other characteristics. These are relatively stable characteristics that determine your behavior. So personality is unique and relatively stable patterns of behavior is personality. Relatively stable patterns of behavior across time and situations. This is personality. See, with change of time, like in childhood, adolescence, adulthood, and with change of situations like home, school, workplace, when you're with friends or when you're with family, your certain characteristics will remain stable, and that will determine consistency in your behavior. This is called personality. So understood what is personality? So what are the characteristics of personality? Characteristics of personality are that there is certain unique traits which combine to form personality, and these are relatively stable. These express yourself. Then these are rooted in culture. Different cultures will have different personality traits, we'll see later, and part of it is inherited. Up to 50% heritability has been found in various researches. So this is personality. Characteristics of personality are there are certain unique traits which remain stable, which express the self, and which are determined by culture as well as your genes. These are 50% inheritability. So okay, so this is personality. Now there have been different theories to explain the concept of personality. There have been different thinkers. As we know, there are different schools in psychology, like psychodynamic school, behaviorist school, cognitivist, and humanist. these are 4 types of schools in psychology which we see in every topic of psychology. So psychodynamic school says that anything is determined by certain components of psyche. There is a psyche in your mind and it has certain components. Due to their interactions, personality is formed. So behaviorist says that personality is formed because of environment, which gives reward or punishment. So as we know, behaviorist school says that because of external factors your personality is forming, and psychodynamic school says because of internal factors personality is forming. Then cognitivist school says, what does it say? That because of your mental processes, the way you process information, way of processing, which is the mediator between external and internal environment, personality is formed. And humanist school says that human beings, it takes a human perspective of human beings, it takes a positive perspective, and so it says that it has a very positive view of personality, means it has no negative aspect. It says that human strives for self-actualization. Like self-actualization means human being strives to attain full potential. This is called self-actualization, and in this process personality develops, personality forms. Okay, so we'll see in detail later. So let's start with psychodynamic aspect. Psychodynamic theory of personality given by the famous Sigmund Freud. It says that the structure of personality, it gives a structural approach. Structure of personality is that in your psyche there are 3 components. There is id, there is ego, and there is superego. So what is it? It is your basic instincts, your inherent instincts of sex, aggression, hunger, or you can say any sensory pleasure or any evolutionary thing like aggression. So it has basic instincts. And superego, so on what principle does it work? It works on pleasure principle. It tries this, there is a part of your mind which is called id, which tries to maximize pleasure. So it exerts a pressure that to do something, there is a need or there is an instinct, and to satisfy that instinct it will exert a pressure on ego. Then another thing is superego. What does superego mean? Superego signifies it is based on moral inherent, like the positive view of humans say that there is an inherent moral sense in a person which guides you to do what you think is right. It works on moral principle. So it also exerts a pressure on ego to behave in a certain manner. For example, you go to someone's home, sweets are kept there, your basic instinct pressurizes you to eat the sweets, but your superego, it says it is immoral to behave in that manner and one should have control over their instincts. So now there is a conflict. It is applying, both are applying pressure on ego. What is ego? Ego is you. Ego is psychological aspect of you. See, there is you the person, you are born, then a sense develops that you, there a sense develops of biological you. You see, like you understand that you have certain needs, you cry, a child cries for milk, you know. So in this way a child understands that there is a biological aspect of you, and then at a certain age there a psychological aspect of you develops. You understand that my name is this, and I have certain likes and dislikes. Maybe you like drawing, maybe you dislike sports, or vice versa. So the psychological aspect of you is known as ego. So this is ego here. Ego is psychological aspect of you. So there is an internal pressure from id, there is an internal pressure from superego, and there is an external pressure, maybe external demand or pressure, you can say, from the external environment. So it will exert another pressure. Maybe the auntie there is forcing you to eat the sweets, है ना? So there is an external pressure, id and superego. So there is a conflict between different things. What your ego decides to do, what action does it take, will determine your personality. Understand? So how do you resolve this conflict between id, ego and external environment? How do you resolve this conflict determines your personality. Understood? So, and how does ego work? This id works on pleasure principle, superego works on moral principle. Ego works on, let's say, reality principle. It says what is the reality. Reality means acknowledging the external environment apart from internal demands. So now you see, external environment is also a factor in psychodynamic theory. Personality is a result of person plus environment. So person's interaction with the environment. Personality is not formed in isolation. There is certain action to be taken. So if now, what does the ego have to do? Ego has to resolve the conflict. How will it resolve the conflict? It will try to quiet the id. It will try to convince it that its impulses are wrong, and it will try to satisfy the conditions of superego, that the moral principles are being followed, and it will try to adapt to the reality by taking a meaningful action. If a ego is successful in resolving the conflict, then a healthy personality develops. If it is successful, then you develop a healthy personality, and if it is not successful, then what will happen? There will be an anxiety in that person. So there can be two types of anxiety. If id is unsatisfied, then there will be neurotic anxiety, and if superego is not satisfied. Okay, we don't need to understand, there'll be moral anxiety, but we don't need to go into the details. Now, how this anxiety, now see, you could not resolve the situation, ego could not resolve the situation, now it has gone into anxiety. To resolve this anxiety, either he will apply reasoning, he will try to resolve this anxiety, else it will go to defense mechanisms. Now, what are the defense mechanisms? Defense mechanisms are abnormal patterns of behavior to protect the ego. Now you could not resolve the anxiety, so you are going to justify the actions of ego, and in this justification you adopt certain abnormal patterns. So there can be a variety of defense mechanisms, like I'll tell you in short. There is denial, like you deny the existence of reality, deny reality, you can see in short. Then there is repression, you repress the id impulses, you don't let it surface. Then there is rationalization, that your actions are correct. Like if you are cheating, you say that because everybody else is cheating, so I am also cheating. You are rationalizing your behavior by giving some examples that concur with that behavior. Then there is projection. You project your feelings onto someone else. Like if you hate someone, you say that you hate me, that's why I hate you. So you are projecting your feelings onto someone else. Then there is displacement. You transfer your feelings from the actual target to a soft target. Like some people do domestic violence at home because they are frustrated at work, because they can't let out their frustration at the boss, so they will let out their frustration at the woman or child of the house, which are the soft targets. So that is called displacement. So there are like one more important is regression. Regression means going back. So you regress back to childhood behavior. Like what is the childhood behavior? Crying, throwing tantrums. And there is compensation. Compensation means if you are lacking, ego lacks in one aspect, it tries to compensate in another aspect. Like if ego feels that you are incompetent in academics, you try to be competent in sports, and once you try to be competent in sports, it boosts your ego. So your ego is boosted, your ego is not anxious anymore. So compensation. And then so all these are defense mechanisms. Actually this is not a defense mechanism which I'm going to tell you, it is a positive way to resolve the conflict. Positive way to resolve the conflict is sublimation. Like your id impulses are channelized, they get a channel to let out. So they are not repressed, but you give an appropriate channel. For example, there is a person who likes to be sarcastic. So your basic instinct is sarcasm, but you can't be, if you are working in a formal environment, you will not be taken in a positive state. So you will have to repress your id impulses of sarcasm. You'll have to inhibit you will have to censor yourself. So, and that may create anxiety in your personality. Which anxiety? Neurotic anxiety. So how do you, so you have to provide a proper channel for the sarcasm to let out. So what is going to be a proper channel? Like you can be like, nowadays this is a very popular thing, you can be a stand-up comic, you can be a satirist, columnist, or you can be a journalist, you can be a poet. So all these things, you can take certain profession that allows your sarcasm to let out. So this sublimation is the correct way of channelizing your impulses, and this is the, like, for today's youth problems, sublimation is very important, because there is a lot of id energy spilling over in a negative manner. So coming back to the topic, we are saying psychodynamic aspects, psychodynamic theory of personality, which says personality is formed of this structure and dynamic interaction between these entities. It results into personality. Personality is not in isolation, it is interaction of person and environment. What is the purpose of ego? To resolve the conflict, and while resolving the conflict, this personality emerges. And if the conflict is not resolved, then there is anxiety, and there are certain defense mechanisms to overcome the anxiety. So the main contribution of this Freudian theory is that it is a very comprehensive theory which challenged other theories like behaviorism, and it said that it emphasized on uniqueness of individual, and it emphasized on unconscious part of brain where id impulses originate, and this unconscious part of brain, and he said that it is responsible for majority of behavior. So this is a huge heuristic value. So he opened the door to such a large reservoir of psychological information. So according to him, this unconscious part of brain is majority part of brain, and it contains the repressed impulses and desires. So it has a huge heuristic value. So the different components of unconscious, and see, unconscious is not a structural part in brain, it is a concept. But unconscious means whatever you can't access. There is a conscious mind and there is an unconscious mind. So anything that you know about yourself is in your conscious mind because you know it, so it is called conscious. And there are certain things which you are carrying from childhood, and they are called the unconscious, because you are carrying it in your mind but you are not aware of it, and it is impacting your behavior. So Freud said conceptualize this unconscious, and it has a huge heuristic value for future psychologists called neo-Freudians, and like Horney and Carl Jung, who built upon the concept of the unconscious and different factors that impacted the unconscious. We'll see that in later chapters, in later topics. And then a huge success of this theory was psychotherapy, psychoanalytical therapy, you can say, which used dream analysis. And then there was indirect measurements of psychology and of personality, indirect measurements of personality are there, which try to assess your personality in terms of the same unconscious impulses, to know like what is in that unconscious that is driving your behavior, what are the impulses that driving your behavior, and resulting in your personality. So this is a contribution of Freud's theory, and criticism is that it is pessimistic, it is very much childhood centric. So it says that whatever has happened in childhood and it can't be amended, which is wrong. And so it has psychic determinism, like your psyche will determine everything. Environment has no impact. We know that it is not so. Persons living in different families have result into different personalities because of their different environments. And the sample used was a very biased sample of young wealthy people on whom the research was conducted. So research has not such empirical basis, and there is case study method has been utilized. So it is a very idiosyncratic approach to personality. It is not comparable, you can say doesn't allow for comparison between individuals, because it focuses on each individual's uniqueness. So, and it lacks empirical validity because of these two factors. Validity is low. So this is one approach to personality, understanding personality in terms of what lies within the psyche of the person. And in another lecture we'll see the behaviorist approach to personality, that is how environment has a role to play in forming of personality. Next lecture. So thank you very much, and please revise this and let me know your doubts in the comment section. Thank you.